we're going to talk about forgotten scandals. And when I say forgotten scandals, I don't mean that you have forgotten all these. Maybe you have. Maybe you've forgotten all. Maybe you've forgotten some. Maybe you want to forget them. You know, we look back on things like Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. We look back on things like the COVID tyranny. And the truth is, it's human nature. I have this too. You have this too. To want to move on when things are painful. Do you have painful memories in your life? Of course you do. Everybody does. That's part of life. You like to sit around dwelling on them? No. You want to move on. And I understand that. I understand that about you. I understand that about me. But here's the thing. We have moved on too many times in this country from political scandals. Powerful people in the government, politicians, bureaucrats, whoever they may be, they use their political office, do something terrible with it, and then slowly you'll get an investigation, some documents end up getting revealed. Years later, people will do a report, I'll come on television and talk about it. But by then, the outrage of that particular thing has kind of been turned way down and everybody just kind of wants to move on. We have bigger fish to fry. Haven't you heard about inflation? But let me tell you something. There is nothing criminals love more than the feeling people just want to move on. Think about the mafia, Italian mafia. Think about the Gambino family right now. Think how lovely it would be if they woke up one morning and found out, oh, well, look at this. The Department of Justice, the NYPD, all these guys, they're tired of talking about our crimes. They're ready to move on. Criminals love the idea of moving on. And criminals inside of our government love that you and I move on. They know they can do horrible things, drag things out, and people will just move on eventually because we're too busy. There are too many scandals. Everyone has a phone. There's a new scandal coming down. And they know that eventually you are going to be tempted to just say, oh, gosh, can't we just move on? That's music to the ears of a criminal. I will not move on. Maybe it's a Kelly thing. Maybe it's my Irish heritage. I don't know. But I haven't moved on from the President of the United States of America telling me he was losing patience with me.
Over 200 million Americans have gotten at least one shot. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us.
We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin. I know that was one press conference. I know you probably have moved on from it, not dwelling on it. I want you to just take a moment with me and dwell on that, just that moment right there. The President of the United States of America is not a king. He's not a dictator. He's not a czar. He is a servant of the people, the top executive for sure, but you are not a subject. You realize that. You are a citizen. It's a huge difference. You are not underneath the President of the United States of America. He cannot give you commands. He doesn't get to tell you what to do, where to go, where to live, not in a free country. And he most definitely should never feel comfortable standing in front of the American people and telling them how impatient he was getting with them. With the little threat built in there, you could almost feel it. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin. Oh, really, Mr. President? What do you plan on doing to us when your patience runs completely out? I haven't let it go. I haven't let go of the fact that these people have used the forces of government to attack their political opponents. In my mind, I believe that should come with life imprisonment or the death penalty. The director of the Central Intelligence Agency, director of the FBI, getting together with the president to cook up some fake intelligence in order to torpedo the incoming Republican president is a crime that should come with capital punishment or life in prison. I genuinely believe that all the way. That is taking critically important positions in the government and using it for evil. And I mentioned it already. Let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about the fact that the land of the free turned into a communist dictatorship where you were told where to go, what to eat, where you're not allowed to eat, what you have to wear. These people forced you. In some cases, many cases, people lost their jobs if they weren't injected with something completely experimental. They didn't even know if it worked or not. And of course, we now know it lasts about as long as fruit stripe gum, if it works at all. And yet the United States government, the medical community, our major corporations, institution after institution, the elites in this society smashed normal people during COVID, and now no one wants to talk about it anymore. No one wants a reckoning. Everybody wants to move on. Oh, Jesse, it's too much. Can't we just move on? I want to move on. I'm not ready to move on. How about the Federal Bureau of Investigation going to Facebook and telling them to censor a story about Hunter Biden, one they knew was true?
The FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant.
People should go to prison for that. We are going to talk about these scandals. We're going to talk about not moving on. Oh, that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am most definitely right. We have Jim Jordan here. John Solomon is about to drop some information on you that is going to floor you. Jeffrey Tucker most definitely is not ready to move on from COVID stuff. We are jam-packed. We'll be back. You know why the bread's good in Europe? We got stuck in France for 2 days. It's a long story over Christmas time, but all the bread was so good. It was amazing. It turns out there's a law requiring it to be made the same day. It's also good because it's fresh. Fresh things are better. That's not exactly news. You know that. I know that. But here's the thing. We don't ever think about that when it comes to things we buy in glass bottles, things like olive oil. We know we want fresh fruit and fresh bread, but we go down the grocery store aisle and just grab a bottle of olive oil. Oh, that looks authentic. You know, some of that stuff is years old. Let me change your cooking world. Farmfresh246.com. You will find olive oil fresh from the farm there. In fact, they'll send you a $39 bottle of this olive oil. All you do is pay $1 to cover the shipping. Try one bottle. My wife is hooked. You'll always have some in your house. Farmfresh246.com.
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold. Tulsi Gabbard, what they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up all the way going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook. And I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly.
That's a big deal. What Tulsi Gabbard's been saying publicly is a big deal. This has gone now beyond just you, me talking about it here. This almost appears like there's going to be action. I hate to get my hopes up. Joining me now, the great John Solomon, founder of Just the News, one of my favorites. That's one of my go-tos out there. Okay, John, obviously none of this stuff was news to you because this is stuff you've been talking about for a very, very long time. But for the normal person who probably has read Just the News, they're wondering what changed, what's new? What's new, John?
Well, I think what changed is that the intelligence community finally coughed up the evidence that we knew existed in a classified setting. They kept this stuff classified for 8 years so that you couldn't prove a conspiracy. So John Durham couldn't go to court and make the best case he could in front of a grand jury. And I think now, because Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and John Ratcliffe are in place, the secrets are getting forced out of the vaults. And when you put it all together, what I've been able to report, for years is now sitting in plain view. You see the documents and you see a machinery, an intelligence machinery, and a law enforcement machinery that was directed by the President of the United States, Barack Obama, and his team to make sure that Donald Trump couldn't win the election. Then when he did win the election, to make sure he couldn't succeed in his first term as president. That's really the storyline. And the most awesome tools we gave the intelligence community and the FBI to fight terrorists, to fight counterintelligence threats, were turned against the American people. That's the real story.
That is the real story for sure. And one thing I love, and again, this is not news to people who've been paying attention, but I love that Barack Obama's name is finally getting brought up under this. It's always driven me crazy that people pin this all on Hillary Clinton. I mean, It's not that I love Hillary Clinton, but Hillary Clinton was not the president of the United States of America when these things happened. Barack Obama was, and I always knew there was not a snowball's chance, and you know where, that the intelligence agencies were going to go after Donald Trump without Barack Obama's approval.
Yeah. Listen, Barack Obama is at the center of the plot, along with Hillary Clinton. There's no doubt about it. Let me tell you two data points that we've had for a long time that I think are important. Hillary Clinton does a poll going into the 2016 election, and she thinks her email scandal is the #1 problem. And she finds out that actually, among voters, the problem is her family's ties to Russia. So they decide long before Donald Trump is the president, they're going to hang a Russian shingle on somebody, whoever the Republican nominee is. And at that point, they didn't think it was Donald Trump. But she needed to neutralize, based on her own internal polling, the Russia collusion storylines in her own family. Bill Clinton taking the $500,000 donation, the millions of dollars that come in through the Uranium One Russian nuclear deal. So they make that decision very early on, and then it just pivots in the summer of 2016 to Donald Trump because he's the nominee. Now, Barack Obama is in 3 key ignition points of this really 8-year scandal. The first is in late July, he meets with John Brennan, and John Brennan tells him that they've intercepted information that Hillary Clinton approved, doing a dirty trick, basically making it look like Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump were collaborating to hijack the 2016 election. So they knew it was a dirty trick. They have that meeting 5 days before a Crossfire Hurricane is opened by the FBI as the investigation. Barack Obama could have stopped it. If he's going to do the right thing, he said, well, wait a second, that's Hillary Clinton's dirty trick. We're not going to use the FBI that way. He doesn't. Then in the same time, there's an intercept that the FBI gets that says that Barack Obama has been putting the squeeze on Loretta Lynch to not investigate Hillary Clinton any further. That squeeze apparently causes the FBI not to look at 5 thumb drives worth of potential serious information stolen from the State Department on her watch by a foreign power, and not to look at some evidence about the tampering of President Obama with the Justice Department. They slide that off to the side, give Hillary Clinton a pass, and James Comey waves a magic wand and does it. So Barack Obama's in the middle of that. Then in January, as they're heading into the new administration, the first part of the plot failed. Donald Trump still won in spite of the Russian collusion hoax. Barack Obama presides over a meeting with his top lieutenants, Justice, FBI, intelligence, and they're trying to figure a way to keep the investigation of Mike Flynn open. Why? Because on January 4th, 2017, the FBI decided to close down Mike Flynn. There was no evidence of wrongdoing. He didn't do anything wrong. On January 5th, they meet and they try to find a way and concoct a way to keep Mike Flynn in harm's way. Why? Because that will hamper the president. His national security advisor will be blown out by a DOJ investigation. An FBI agent takes notes at that meeting and writes, what's our goal here, to get the truth or to try to get someone to lie so we have a criminal case? Even he could see what the president was presiding over. That's why Barack Obama's name now surfaces so much in this scandal.
Okay, John, I've been asking every smart person I can get my hands on at this point in time, so I'm going to ask you too. Does anybody go down for this? I know it's 8 years old. I know there are statute of limitations. I am not a lawyer, but I'm just like everyone else. I'm tired of hearings. I'm tired of finding out how evil these people are. Who goes to jail?
Right. Yeah, listen, I think that is the question, because if nobody really pays a consequence, a serious consequence for this, the temptation to do this in future elections will grow exponentially. The answer to the question rests with Pam Bondi, who had a bumpy start with the Epstein documents, but this is her moment to potentially right the ship and show that she could do something. In April, the FBI under Kash Patel opened what we call a grand conspiracy case. It takes what began in the clearing of Hillary Clinton in the spring and summer of 2016, ignoring that evidence we just talked about, and takes it all the way to the fall of 2024 with Jack Smith, and looks at it as one ongoing conspiracy, a conspiracy among government collaborators, intelligence, law enforcement, and Democratic operatives to put the thumb of the government on the election, to deprive Donald Trump of his civil liberties, to interfere in the election process for Americans, and to falsely clear Democrats who may have been engaged in wrongdoing, Hunter Biden, Hillary Clinton. That conspiracy case gives Pam Bondi the opportunity to do some exciting things. One, go back and charge crimes outside the statute of limitations. Normally there's a 5-year window, but if you have an ongoing conspiracy like the mob cases would do, things in 2016 are just as important as 2024, and you can lop them together in an indictment. The second reason this is exciting for people who want accountability is that Pam Bondi does not have to bring this case in the District of Columbia, where John Durham could not secure convictions, even though he had some slam dunk evidence. She can bring this case in the state of Florida, which has a much more moderate jury pool, not a 90% Democratic jury pool. Why is that? Because Jack Smith's raid on President Trump's Mar-a-Lago office, his submissions to the court all occurred in federal court in Florida. That opens the door for Florida to be the venue. It's one of the overt acts of the conspiracy. And then you can bring all the charges in Florida going back to 2016. It takes the jury poll and the 90% Democratic taint to that jury poll out of the equation. But Pam Bondi has to have the courage. That conspiracy case was open for 3 months. Pam Bondi has not yet lifted a finger to act on it. That is, I think, is the big question. Pam Bondi has to act, or this is just another set of revelations that end up with no consequence.
John, does she have what it takes? I know I've been frustrated. Everyone else has been frustrated. She's not going to have high marks with any Republican at this point in time, but it's also early. Does this woman, with her history, her legal history, does she have what it takes to go after $2,000 an hour lawyers and take down powerful people?
I think the more likely scenario is that Pam Bondi would name a special prosecutor. There's a good reason to do it. The victim of this conspiracy is her boss, Donald Trump. So you go get the best confirmed Senate appointee that is the most skilled lawyer you can find, and you put him in charge of this investigation. You take advantage of that Florida jury pool, and then you may have an opportunity not only to secure indictments in a grand jury, but secure convictions. But it's not going to be the career people at the Justice Department. It's not going to be Pam Bondi, who's more of a political figure, obviously a good lawyer, but a political figure. It's going to take the best Senate-confirmed prosecutor you can find, who's got the bona fides, the court experience, the ability to prosecute, interrogate, and convince a jury. That great storyteller can secure convictions because the evidence and the storyline are there. You just need a great prosecutor to bring the case.
John, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you very much. Come back. We have so much more, so much ugliness out there. Let's dig into it next. Don't you think it's weird that there's a low-T men's clinic on every street corner now? What's that about? Why is that? Well, let me explain. The United States of America, we have synthetic estrogens in our water. This really comes from birth control and everything. It's in our water. It's in the water you drink, yes, even your bottled water. You shower in estrogen. The result of this has been a 50% loss in our testosterone in 50 years. In half a century, we've lost half the testosterone in this country, and men know it. Men, maybe you, sad, depressed, no energy, getting flabby, can't figure out why. Your T levels are too low. Reverse that with a natural solution, natural herbal supplements from Chuck. Don't go get a needle in your arm. Go try a male vitality stack. You want a 17.76% discount? Go to chuck.com/JesseTV.
The leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they, look, he's guilty. It's not a question, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there, he's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election.
Look, it's a big deal. It's gone into big deal mode, for lack of a better way to put it. It's one thing for me to sit here and rant about Obama weaponizing the intelligence community. The President of the United States of America is saying the word treason. The DNI is dropping documents on the AG's desk and saying prosecute. Are we about to see some real punishment? I know someone who's probably quite happy with the current circumstances. The chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan, joins me now. Congressman, what do we know now that we didn't know before? I know you've been on this stuff for quite a while. Well, is it just confirmation of everything we knew?
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. And I do think when President Trump referenced President Obama, he was pointing to what I think is a key date, December 9th, 2016. So remember, they spied on his campaign. They tried to undermine his campaign. Never in American history have you had the intelligence community spy on one of the major political parties' presidential candidates' campaign. They did that. That didn't work. President Trump wins. And so now it's between Election Day and Inauguration Day, and they're figuring out what to do. They have this meeting on December 9th in the Oval Office. All the key players are there. Comey, Clapper, Brennan, McCabe, Lynch, you name it. The whole team is there. And it's at this meeting where it looks like President Obama decided we're not going to accept the intelligence community assessment that President Trump and Russia had no collusion, that the Russians didn't interfere with the election. We're not going to accept that. We're going to hold that. And they plot their strategy. And then over the next 30 days, they set about trying to trap and undermine President Trump's administration. And so you fast forward to January 3rd, 2017, Chuck Schumer does an interview. I think it was on Meet the Press. He does an interview and he says, if you mess with the intelligence community, referring to President Trump, if you mess with the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. And the first question is, why is the leader of the Democrat Party in the Senate saying something like that? Like, what the government's going to get back at the guy who's in charge of the government, the executive branch? But that's what he says. 3 days later, the plan that was, I think, hatched at that meeting on December 9th is carried out 3 days after Chuck Schumer makes his threat. Comey, Clapper, Brennan go to Trump Tower. They brief the president. President-elect Trump thinks this is the customary defensive briefing all incoming presidents are going to receive from the intelligence community. He has no idea they're setting him up or trying to set him up. And at that meeting, Comey tells the president about the dossier that the FBI had, the dossier that they knew was false. He tells President Trump about it because no one really covered it during the campaign. But now, if the FBI director is telling President Trump about it, well, Shazam, it must be important. And it's leaked to the press and the press runs with it. And off we go to Mueller and everything else. So this is where it all began. And it was an effort to undermine the elected president of the United States. And so Tulsi has done, I think, exactly the right thing. She's giving the documents that support that entire narrative, which I always believe is what happened.
Congressman, can people actually go down for this? And I understand you are not Pam Bondi, you're not the AG, you don't have the power to do this. But you hear the same things I hear. People are tired of government people never going down for committing crimes. If you take your position as the head of the FBI, head of the CIA, and you choose to politic with that, just me speaking, in my mind, you should spend the rest of your life in prison. That's how bad that crime is, to take such a sacred organization and use it for the Democrat Party. That's just, it's evil on a whole new level. But I'm also not naive, and I don't want to sit and promise people Barack Obama's going to be in an orange jumpsuit. Who goes down? Anybody?
Well, we'll find out. And again, that's going to be up to the Attorney General and the Justice Department. But I do think this is something that has to be pursued. We'll see what Pam decides to do. First, gather the evidence, do the investigation. I think you have a lot. That's why the Director of National Intelligence turned that information over to the Justice Department. I do think it's important for we as Republicans, we as people who love this country, the greatest country ever, not be vengeful, but also say, look, accountability is important. And I do think what I just described, I believe that happened just as sure as I'm talking to you, Jesse. What I described is wrong as wrong could be. And so I am all for the Justice Department using every means they can to go after these people. and within the law, within what's fair, what's the right thing to do. But I do think they should do it. Now, there's a statute of limitations issue we'll have to deal with. Is it a conspiracy charge? Is it a lying to Congress? There's lots of things. But I do think it should be pursued to the fullest extent.
That wasn't the only Get Trump hoax. We have Jack Smith. Honestly, Jack Smith is all but forgotten about now because that whole thing failed. But from what I understand, you guys might be poking around in that, are you?
Yeah, we're talking to some of the people who were part of his team. We're bringing them in, and we may even get to Jack Smith. We've got everything on the table because you're right. It all started back with what we were just describing back in 2016 and 2017, but it continued with Mueller, then with impeachment, then with the 51 intel. You know, it's funny. It's the same group of people. Clapper and Brennan were on that 51 intelligence officials who signed that letter and impacted the 2020 election, and then moved through then it's the January 6th committee going after President Trump. And then in 2022, right after the midterms, President Trump announces he's running for president. And what happens? Jack Smith, Fonnie Willis, Alvin Bragg, they all start going after him. But Jack Smith was the serious one. So we're talking to some of the prosecutors who were part of his team, bringing them in, getting answers to questions that we think are important. And so we had Mr. Wyndham in. We're bringing him back in under a subpoena because he didn't really answer all the questions that we think are important. So we'll continue to dig there. But it's all part of this weaponization of government that started with the Obama White House when President Trump was running and then when President Trump won, and it's continued ever since.
Yet another scandal that looms out there is the Hunter Biden stuff. Now, I don't expect people to care about Hunter Biden personally, kind of just a disaster of a human being, so that's not what I'm talking about at all. But the arrangements look bad. They look corrupt. It's not just the Burisma stuff, the David Weiss investigation. It looks like Hunter Biden was guarded and protected by forces of government in ways that were wrong, illegal. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it sure looks that way. And you don't have to get into the details. Just look at what happened. David Weiss puts together the sweetheart deal. They take it to the court, and the court says, have you ever put a deal like this together before? And the prosecutors for David Weiss say, no, Your Honor, we haven't. She says, I've never seen anything like this myself. And they throw the sweetheart deal out. And then and only then does David Weiss go to the Attorney General and say, now I need a special counsel, which meant the investigation was going to continue. We couldn't get answers all during that time when when Biden was still president and he was still planning to run for office. So I think that was all political. And he got a special deal from the get-go, clear back to when. I mean, he got a special deal when he gets put on the board of Burisma with, in his own words, with no qualifications, and gets paid like $1 million a year to show up at a couple board meetings. So yeah, I think he got special treatment the entire way through, and now he's out giving interviews and saying all kinds of swear words and criticizing Republicans. And I think he even said, if I were president, I would do X, Y, and Z. And the good news is I don't think he's ever going to be president.
I don't like his odds campaigning in Iowa. He did.
I'm with you.
As he's making the rounds, he is bringing up Joe Biden's decline, covering for that, complaining about Nancy Pelosi. But I know there are just too many scandals now. People only have so much outrage in the tank. But it is kind of a big deal that we didn't have a functional adult as president of the United States for 4 years, and the country was run by AutoPen. Can we do anything about that? I know they're all clamming up when you drag them in there.
Yeah, you keep investigating, but it seems to me, short of a whistleblower, short of someone in the government coming forward and saying, I saw this, here's what happened, I don't know that you're ever going to get the hard evidence, because they're going to assert privilege if they're key counselors to the president, or they can assert their privileges under the Constitution, the Fifth Amendment. So they're likely to do that. I think you're going to need a whistleblower, like we had with the Hunter Biden story. I mean, Ziegler, Mr. Shapley and Mr. Ziegler, who from the IRS who came forward, but for them, we probably don't know about any of this stuff with Hunter Biden. And they were right on target. None of their story ever changed, and it didn't change because they were telling the truth. So short of a whistleblower, I think it's tough. Excuse me.
What about the FBI whistleblowers? Some whistleblowers have been made whole. Others are still waiting on that. I understand there are procedures that people have to go through. Where are we at on that?
Marcus Allen has been, made whole is sort of subjective. He's got his back pay and everything else, but what they put him through, what they put Garrett O'Boyle through and some of these other guys is just as wrong as it gets. I mean, literally, Garrett O'Boyle was, I remember this story. He comes forward, talks about a number of those issues that we were dealing with, the Catholic memorandum, the targeting parents at school board meetings, and all the terrible things that were going on in the Biden DOJ. He comes forward, and he's been given this promotion and moved to this new office. They let him move his family across the country and then tell him, oh, by the way, you're on leave. You're not going to get paid. You're not going to be able to get your stuff that was in store. I mean, the way they treated this guy. But Marcus Allen was another one who came forward. He's actually been made whole as far as back pay goes. But it just a testament to the Chris Wray FBI, just how bad the leadership was at that time.
It truly was. Congressman, thank you, sir. Come back soon. We have so much more. Hang on. I love chips. I'm a chip freak. I am. But I also have this thing called cholesterol. Maybe you've heard of it. And so when I go to the doctor and I get my blood work done, he's normally leaning on me about that. So what do? I'm not going to not eat chips. What do? Well, I had a friend tell me about Massa Chips. And I'd seen all kinds of Massa Chips advertisements before, and I dismissed every one of them. And you know why? Massa Chips only has 3 ingredients: corn, sea salt, and beef tallow. And they're sold as, a healthier alternative. And I immediately thought, okay, so they're gross. They're gross. I got a couple bags. It's probably my favorite chip, maybe that I've ever had in my life. I'm not even kidding. I just devour these things now. My youngest son eats worse than I do, devours these things now. This is for me, unhealthy Jesse. Try them. You'll be healthier and you can still eat chips. massachips.com/JesseTV.
You really should, in an indoor setting, a congregate setting, be wearing masks. It's just the appropriate thing to do to protect yourself and your family.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick.
Ivermectin is something more often used to deworm horses.
If we really do our part, stay at home, social distance, then we can flatten our curve even below those projections. But it really depends on all of us.
I'm making the personal sacrifices not to infect my parents and my pregnant daughter. I worry about that because then it gives people the option to say, well, if bars and restaurants are open, then I can have 20 people over for Thanksgiving. And so I don't like it to be any number. I like it to be, keep it to your immediate household.
I haven't let it go. I hope you haven't let it go. A relentless assault on your liberty. Just evil was done to the society, and people need to be punished for it. Joining me now, maybe the best person probably I've ever talked to on this stuff is Jeffrey A. Tucker. He authored the book Life After Lockdown, which still gets me steamed when I think about reading it. Highly recommended it. Jeffrey, we lived under tyranny for a period of time, and I do feel like a lot of people, understandably, just kind of want to let it go. They want to forget about it. They want to move on. I can't. I guess I'm just not like that. I can't let it go.
It was a totalitarian, dystopian nightmare of unmitigated evil emanating from the top of society. We've yet to entirely figure out who or what or why. But even at the time, plenty of people figured out that what was going on was not normal. It was inconsistent with all rights and liberties in Western tradition. It was a CCP-style regime that lasted a year or 2 or 3. In many ways, we're still living in the aftermath of it. And we absolutely need to revisit this, figure it out, see what's going on. I feel like we're coming to this moment culturally where it's becoming more permissible. Just last night, I saw the new movie Edington. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's not appearing in any of the posh theaters in rich neighborhoods because it is absolutely brutal in its truth-telling about these times, about how it divided our communities, and how we were all being played by very powerful forces to shatter our lives and to self-immolate and essentially destroy everything that civilization has to offer. This is where Fauci led us. This is where the national security state led us. This is where big tech and big media and big medicine, they were all involved, and the academy absolutely shut up about it and just let it go on and on. So there's a lot of people that need to pay a heavy price for this. Arrests would be nice, accountability of some sort, or even just figuring out what the heck happened between February and August of 2020 and following, where the kids were sacrificed. But I'll stop. But I'm as outraged as you are, Jesse, and I'm so grateful that you're continuing to visit this issue.
No, you don't need to stop, Jeffrey. I'm worried that we're going to stop. And you mentioned, it was so true, that there was a CCP style thing. And I'll tell you, this is something I still can't wrap my head around. Maybe you can help me with this. I was amazed that not only America's government and at least some percentage of America's people craved that and demanded that instead of craving freedom, going a different route, the freedom route. I can't count how many people, experts, said, well, look at what China's doing, as if that was somehow a model for what we should be doing. And the American people who accepted it, I guess, I hate to sound like a father, I'm disappointed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I do understand your point. There was a red guard that arose among us, mostly consisting of the professional, educated, well-to-do classes that were entitled to stay at home and they want to stay clean. And they joined in all the state propaganda, throwing people out of grocery stores for not wearing masks, screaming at you because you wouldn't accept the vaccination. Our churches segregated themselves, our cities, New York, Boston, New Orleans, DC, and Seattle, at least those in Portland, I think, all segregated according to vaccination status. Something we thought was gone, 150 years ago, came back with the approval of the New York Times and the Harvard faculty and all of the elites in society. It was left to the working classes, lower classes, and people who do their own research to drive the incredulity and the skepticism, and led to an unraveling of all these policies. And that's also fed very much strongly into our politics. In fact, my own view of this, Jesse, is that COVID experience is the prism through which you can pretty much understand everything that's going on in America today. The lack of trust of basically everything. It all began with the COVID period, and we still haven't put our lives back together again. And it's interesting about this Edington movie, which again I encourage everybody to go see. It really does, pick off the scab. In a kind of a delightful way. But the New York Times ran an article saying, oh, America went mad in 2020, and it's too soon, really, for us to visit those times. Well, there's a couple of points about that. One is that the New York Times pushed this. They were the very first media outlet to try to whip up the public into accepting lockdowns. That was February 27th, 2020. But with the reporter Donald G. McNeil's podcast that appeared on that morning, he was later fired from the paper and got a Substack and said that he was being lied to the entire time. I would like to know more about his experiences in that respect. He's a competent reporter, but he played a very evil role in this entire thing. And the second thing to say about Goldberg's point there concerning how it's too soon. Well, wait a minute. Do we have to wait another 10 years, another 20 years? And when is it going to be time to have some accountability explanation, or at least some cultural accounting of how this country descended into totalitarianism to the extreme? I'll tell you one other thing, Jesse, is fascinating to me about this. You've been following all the revelations from Tulsi Gabbard, which were getting drip by drip about what was really going on in 2016 with Russiagate and so on. Well, this ties very closely into the COVID story, which nobody says, but that, as soon as the Russiagate thing was kind of more or less over, COVID came along. But the person running the Justice Department at the time was Rod Rosenstein. All right. So that's now well known. His sister, Nancy Messonnier, was the employee at the CDC who first took it upon herself to brief all the elite media about the coming lockdowns without ever asking permission of the Trump administration. All right. So, Rosenstein, I mean, maybe he's not on speaking terms with his sister. I tend to think that there is a connection there. Nancy Messonnier at CDC was the one who did this, at least probably at the behest of the national security state, briefed all the media about the coming lockdowns, prepared everything. I'm going to say this is like February 23rd or 24th, 2020. A few days later, they're all drumming it up for lockdowns. It was an attempt to get Trump. They backed Trump into a corner where they basically said, this is going to happen. You can either be left behind or get out in front of it. You chose to get out in front of it, but realized, a few weeks later, certainly by a month later, that he had been, that this is just another chapter in the Russiagate plot. It was an attempt at a coup, essentially. That's what really happened. So I hope before this term is up with Trump, we get some accountability for that, and we get some truth, and we get some honesty about it, because we desperately need it. One of the things that I still just can't believe really happened. You recall in March, we all locked down and all the businesses were destroyed, and our churches were closed. We couldn't have Easter. We couldn't even have Christmas much later. But right in the middle of this, this is the summer, we had this weird time where we're all supposed to care desperately and deeply about George Floyd and join the Black Lives Matter movement. You remember all that? And then the protests and the riots and the burnings in the streets, whatever, and Antifa was running around all over the place. So that's a really interesting chapter of this story, because it grew out of the frustration and anger and really psychosis that was imposed by the central authorities on all the American youth, who were forced to sit in their bedrooms for 2 or 3 months scrolling through Instagram and TikTok, and sneaking out at late nights to have socially distanced beer parties and so on. Well, when the opportunity came for them to get out and protest something, so what were the elites telling these young people? Your life is terrible. Your life sucks. You should be angry. What should you be angry at? You should be angry at whiteness. You should be angry at white people. They're the problem. Look at what they did to George Floyd. Join Black Lives Matter, and then you will do some mea culpas for your sins. Black Lives Matter, but it's mostly a white movement, a white progressive movement. But they enlisted all the young people who now had an excuse, finally, to get out and do something with their lives, right? And they were given a purpose, which was abolish the white race. All right. So that, I mean, all of this happened in the seeming blink of an eye. And then, Antifa was all over the place, which we now know, had very strong funding from George Soros. So, there are some very terrible things that happened in that period, and it never really went away. We just kind of lost interest in it in some sense because it was so traumatizing. But like I say, it fundamentally transformed this culture, this country, and not just the U.S., but really all over the world, but the U.S. in particular, because, I mean, frankly, what happens in America matters a lot more than what happens in Malaysia or whatever, right? So we've got to figure it out here. And it's also arguably true that the virus was originated with the U.S. with a U.S. project, and the lockdowns were an attempt to cover it up. I'm not saying I have the final answers to this, but it seems like more or less that's where we're getting. And if anything I just said is true, We need to know it. So we need hearings, we need trials, we need reports. We don't just need the same old baloney cover up stuff that we get into every other national trauma. We need actual truth, real documents,
actual action and accountability. You're not wrong, Jeffrey. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. We have final thoughts next. Punishment is important. It's important. It's biblical. It's important for children. It's important for adults. When people do wrong, they need to be punished. Not out of revenge, out of lesson giving to a society. Society itself needs to see bad people punished because it keeps society in line. For too long in this country, government people have escaped that punishment, never get in trouble at all. And that has brought us to the place where our government is a gigantic criminal enterprise. We have to have punishment. Not because we're vengeful, maybe you are, I am a little bit, but not because we're vengeful, because we want to live in a good, just country. People have to start going to prison. Let's hope it begins. We'll do it again. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.